Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everybody. This is Mr. Shakespeare here again with you on the 27th of October, 2022. I'm here with remote viewer and psychic medium Liz Cross. How are we doing today, Liz?
That was very enthusiastic. Very well, thank you.
Well, I try and vary them. I keep saying the same thing over and over again, but all I change is the date. So I try and put different intonation on, perhaps at the end.
Well, I think you do a splendid job.
Good, thank you, ma'am.
What are we doing today?
China in Your Hand. Now, there was a great song by T'Pau in the 80s called China in Your Hand by Carol Decker, who was the lead singer of T'Pau. Anyway, but we're not doing that one. We're doing China, the People's Republic of China, PRC. Most populous country in the world. Population exceeds 1.4 billion. Their middle class is bigger than the whole of the population of the US, for example. So anyway, we believe that China manufactures most of the pharmaceuticals for America. Is that correct? Oh, sorry. Have you grabbed China, please? Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Certainly. Okay. Do you manufacture a large portion of the pharmaceuticals for the USA? Yes, that is correct.
Has the percentage of the amount that you manufacture for the US, has that risen gently over the last few years?
Percentage produces that. Yes, substantially.
Right, substantially. Okay.
Yes.
What percentage of America's pharmaceuticals, meds, do you currently produce?
What percentage that you were aware of the of U.S. What percentage do you produce of the U.S. pharmaceutical? They're saying around 30%.
Oh, okay. I thought it'd be higher.
Well, that's their general estimate. The 30%. That's still very, very big.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Is there any time in the hold on. Put them out 5 years, please.
Okay. So 2027. Okay. So October. So today's date's October 27th, 2022. So let's go out 5 years. So October 27th, October 27th, 2027, 2027, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. What would you like to know?
Do you still produce about 30% of America's pharmaceutical and medical requirements?
Produce about 30% of America's pharmaceutical. No, it's actually been reduced. That's surprising, isn't it?
It is. Okay. What percentage would they say of what they're aware of? What would they say it is now?
What would you say it is now? It's more about 19 to 20. So there's been a definite shift. Has America started reproducing their own medications? No, but they've spread that out a lot more. They are no longer willing to allow China to have such a stronghold on the pharmaceutical production. That is very interesting because that just goes to show how we're going to shift. And if you remember, and those people that have been following me a long time, that just brings up a spirit of like, oh yeah, don't you remember when blah, blah, blah. So I think maybe over a year ago, you remember when I probed, because you've been with me for a while. So you remember when I did a probe where we were moving towards the end of the decade? And what we got was that nations are going to try to take back their sovereignty, right? Do you remember that probe?
Yeah.
Yes. And it was all to do with the war. And this is before we even contemplated that Russia would take away the oil and the electricity and all of that, and making Europe go through hell right now, or certainly some parts of Europe. But that coincides with that earlier video that somewhere in the ether of where nations start to retreat and take their sovereignty, their power back. They're no longer willing to give such a large portion of power over to one specific country. That is an excellent question, by the way, having me move them out.
Okay, just one thing I'm going to say. So with Russia, well, you just mentioned Russia again, and the energy and the electricity. Russia did not sanction themselves; they were sanctioned, so they can't.
Right. No, I understand that. No, I get it.
In case you thought that Russia were behind this, no, they were not. It was the West and the EU who sanctioned them. But
right,
okay,
exactly. But what is so interesting here, though, and I totally understand that, we sanction them. But what is so interesting, it coincides also with the fact that we probe Europe in the future. And you're starting to see this pull away from the EU as well. So towards the end of the decade, you're going to see countries really starting to take their power back. Let's ask this question. Did the UK rejoin the European Union? And that's a no. So there's all sorts of talk about that too.
Does China now think there is more of a multipolar world or a unipolar world?
More of a multipolar world? Yes. You see, instead of a uni. Yes, there's more of a multipolar world. Yes.
Right. So that's good. That's very good news, because that means the globalists they have not achieved what they wanted to achieve. Right.
So, and this is an interesting probe. It really is, because it just coincides. And I don't remember all these things that I put out, like here today, gone tomorrow. I don't know. But the Spirit had actually said, don't you remember when this coincides with what you said over a year ago. I think that was even before the war had started, that I got that answer. So that's good. That's really good, because there have been, talk show hosts and radio shows that were scared that China has this much control over our pharmaceutical, production, especially when there was all these supply chain issues. People were they were worried that they weren't going to be able to get some of their medications. And you're talking about serious medications like insulin and antibiotics and things like that. So this was a good probe. Any other questions?
Yeah. China holds about $1 trillion of US debt, or it does currently. How much does it hold now, 5 years out?
Do we have a percentage where I can go higher or lower, please?
Well, is it higher or lower than $1 trillion? $1 trillion. Is it higher?
It's higher.
Oh, it's higher.
Mm-hmm.
By a percentage of, by 10% more?
No, not that much high. No. But what the question, I believe, was, did China call in all of their bonds? Did they make,
these are not Chinese bonds. China holds US government debt. It buys US government treasuries.
That's right. So the treasuries. And I think the question I got during a reading was, did China, call in all of those treasuries that they want the US to pay them back right now? And
No, it's not how it works, Liz. So
okay, tell us how it works.
Okay, so US, like most governments, like most entities, issue bonds, issue debt. Yeah, I mean, you pay the money, they give you a bond, they pay you X amount over Y time. Okay. these treasuries have a value. If China doesn't want them, China could sell them to somebody else, like Bulgaria, like Russia, like Japan, like anybody else. It would dishoard them, but it would sell them to somebody else. Okay. I'm not sure of the exact mechanism whereby you can just retire the bonds. I mean, if they're 10-year bonds and they've only been out in the marketplace 2 years, I don't believe you can just go back to the US and say, give me this money. They're a 10-year bond. Yeah.
Mm.
So bonds are a way of kicking the debt down the road all the time. Yeah. So I was just wondering whether if China dishoarded a lot of US government debt, that means that the relationship between China and US is, on the floor. But obviously, if they're still holding their debt, now China wouldn't want to get rid of $1 trillion of debt, because not only would it affect the US, but it would affect China as well. So it's not in their interest to do that. But if they're holding or slightly increasing on it, then that's actually a good sign.
Okay.
For America, it is.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, there you go. And I hope whoever asked me that question during the reading hears this answer, and that would be your answer. But no, I'm getting that they still hold it and they actually buy more.
Well, that's a good thing then. From America's point of view, it's got somebody to buy its debt.
Right. So, anything else?
No, I think we're good with China.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. Awesome.